The biggest mistake of my life was not that I lost my son and husband, and in the fact that, living with this loss, I lost another child. The one who was next to me thought that grief gave me the right to disappear. But my daughter grew up next to a mother who was not there. This is not a story about death. This is a story about the loss of the living. I am a woman who was a wife and mother and now a grandmother. But inside, it was a lot of silence.
She began by showing an old photograph. It showed a young woman with a baby in her arms and a man standing next to her, smiling slightly awkwardly at the camera. Next to her was another child, very small, holding onto the hem of her dress. She said that back then, it seemed as if her whole life had already been arranged and that all that was left was to live. In those years, her days were filled with ordinary things. Work, home, children's cries, laundry, dinners, fatigue. She didn't think of it as anything special. Just family. Just life. She remembers sometimes feeling like she wanted a little more silence or more time to herself, but those thoughts quickly disappeared. There were 2 children and a husband nearby, and it seemed like enough. She wasn't the kind of person who took many photographs. But the ones that remain now look like proof that happiness really existed. Smiles at holidays, cake on the table, children in school uniforms, walks on weekends. When she looks at these pictures now, it's hard to reconcile them with what she feels inside. She said she never thought of the future as something fragile. Everyone was living, making plans, fighting over little things, making peace. She was busy making sure everything worked. That the house didn't fall apart, that the children were fed, that her husband came home from work on time. Her role was simple and at the same time endless. She didn't know then that peaceful years could end in an instant, and that a life that seemed stable could change so that only photographs and silence would remain. She spoke of that day without harsh words. Simply as something that had happened and could no longer be changed. A car accident had taken her husband and son. With one phone call. With one trip that was no different from the others. She remembers standing in the hospital corridor and listening to someone speaking in a strange voice, as if it were not happening to her. After that, her life seemed to stop. The world around her continued to move, but she remained inside that moment. All the days became the same. She woke up, did what she needed to do, and went back to sleep. She didn't cry much. The tears seemed to stop immediately. Only heaviness remained. Her daughter was nearby. Alive. Scared. She went to school, asked questions, waited for answers. But her mother was somewhere far away. She did her duties, cooked, washed, packed her bag. But inside she was empty. She listened to her daughter as if there was a thick wall between them. The photos from those years look strange. They show the 2 of them, mother and daughter. They stand side by side, sometimes even smiling. But when she looks at them now, she sees something different. She sees herself, physically present but emotionally absent. She didn't think of it as cruelty. She thought of it as survival. But her daughter grew up in silence. And with each passing year, more and more unsaid grew between them. Years passed, and the daughter grew up. She learned to be independent earlier than she should have. She didn't ask for much, she didn't complain, she didn't ask unnecessary questions. She simply lived next to her mother, who remained closed in her own pain. There were no loud conflicts between them. There were no scenes or accusations. There was only distance. The daughter would come home from school with news, and her mother would nod as if she were listening. The daughter would talk about her fears and dreams, and her mother would answer briefly, as if she were afraid to touch on something too deep. She doesn't remember when exactly she realized she was losing her daughter. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow process. The daughter stopped sharing. She stopped looking for her mother's gaze. She stopped waiting. When her daughter left home, it didn't seem like a tragedy. She entered university, started her own life. Everything seemed to be going as it should. But for the mother, it became another empty space in the house. She often thought that she had lost only 2 people in that accident. But over time she began to understand, she had also lost the years when she could have been a mother to a living child. The photos from the graduation, from the first holidays without a brother and father, from family gatherings look quiet. In them, everyone is standing next to each other. But inside these frames there is a lot of silence. And it is this silence that has become increasingly difficult over the years. When her daughter became an adult and began to build her own family, her mother saw her as completely different. Calm, collected, reserved. She did not reproach. She did not ask difficult questions. She accepted her mother as she was. And that was what hurt the most. When the grandchildren were born, noise reappeared in the house. Children's voices, toys, chaos, laughter. For the first time in many years, the woman felt that there was life nearby that was not afraid of her silence. She began to spend a lot of time with her grandchildren. She cooked food for them, took them for walks, read fairy tales. She was truly there. And the more she did this, the more clearly she saw the difference between the mother she had been and the grandmother she had become. Sometimes her daughter would watch this silently. Without resentment. Without accusations. She simply observed. And the woman understood that these scenes were not a correction of the past. They were just what remained. She tried several times to talk about those years. About the silence. About the distance. But her daughter always answered calmly, as if it had long since stopped hurting. She said that she understood. That her mother was broken. That she did not hold a grudge. This forgiveness did not bring relief. It only emphasized what had been lost and could no longer be regained. Now she often looks through old albums. Slowly, page by page. Her whole life is there: weddings, births, trips, holidays, school photos, birthdays. There are shots of everyone together, smiling, not yet knowing what lies ahead. She says that these photos no longer bring the pain they used to. They are more a reminder that time passes regardless of whether a person is ready for it or not. In many of the pictures, she sees herself younger, full of strength, not yet broken by what will happen later. Next to these albums now lie new photos, with her grandchildren. Their faces, their smiles, their small movements. She holds these photos carefully, as if they were something fragile. She knows that she cannot bring back the past. But it can be here. Sometimes she catches herself behaving with her grandchildren the way she once would have with her own daughter. She listens to them, takes her time, does not get distracted. She is present. And it both soothes and wounds. The daughter does not talk about the past. She does not blame. She simply lives nearby. And in this silence between them there is acceptance, but there is no return. This story has no happy ending and no tragedy. It has only what is now, a woman who is aware of her losses, and a family that still remains nearby. This is exactly how the author of this channel conveyed her words, without embellishment and without trying to fix anything. Just a life that has already happened.
You have just heard this story from the words of the author of this channel. If there was anything in it that sounded familiar to you, don't turn away from it. I lost not only those who died, I lost those who were close to me. And I ask you not to do the same. Do not disappear from the lives of those who are still alive. Because losing the living is more painful than losing the dead.
If this story made you stop and think about something of your own, subscribe to the channel. Here we collect and tell real people's stories, without embellishment, without fiction, simply as they were lived.